When we think about the assassination of John F. Kennedy, we usually picture it through the lens of a Cold War spy thriller. The popular imagination demands a story filled with sophisticated hit squads, shadowy intelligence agencies, and perfectly executed master plans. There is a distinct psychological reason for this. The human brain naturally rebels against the idea that a chaotic, world-altering tragedy could be triggered by a single, utterly insignificant person. The scale of the cause needs to match the scale of the effect. Lee Harvey Oswald is that uncomfortably insignificant catalyst. A 24-year-old dropout acting entirely on his own does not satisfy our need for narrative order. That deep discomfort birthed a desperate, decades-long search for definitive forensic proof, leading to theories involving shadow governments, mafia hits, and secret agents. But when you step outside the cinematic filter and match those theories against actual documentation, the plot falls apart. The most persistent pieces of alleged evidence from the last 60 years consistently reduce down to optical illusions, mistaken identities, and petty coincidences. Almost all of these theories originate right here in Dealey Plaza, specifically on the infamous grassy knoll. The human brain is hardwired for pareidolia, the tendency to recognize human faces and shapes in random patterns, like seeing a face in a piece of burnt toast. The ultimate historical example of this phenomenon is known as Badge Man. For decades, theorists have pointed to a highly magnified, heavily blurred section of a photograph taken behind the grassy knoll fence. They argue the blurry pixels show a figure in a police uniform, complete with a shining badge, firing a weapon in a bright muzzle flash. High-resolution photographic analysis dismantled the image completely. The shape of the badge and the muzzle flash are simply sunlight reflecting off a Diet Right soda can resting on a retaining wall, combined with the light filtering through the leaves of a nearby tree. This diagram shows the geometric scaling of that physical space. If those reflections were actually attached to a human body standing behind the fence, that person would have to be exactly 4 feet tall and floating in midair to make the angles work. When theorists aren't seeing ghosts in the trees, they are misidentifying the actual people on the ground. Take the 3 tramps, 3 men who theorists insisted were highly trained CIA operatives like E. Howard Hunt, wearing sophisticated disguises. The men were arrested shortly after the shooting because they were found hiding in a boxcar on these train tracks directly behind Dealey Plaza. In 1992, the Dallas Police Department released their unredacted records. The men were Gus Abrams, Harold Doyle, and John Gedney. Their fingerprints, background checks, and arrest records perfectly matched. They were 3 actual, literal vagrants riding the rails. Then there is the most cinematic suspect of all, the Umbrella Man. He was filmed opening a black umbrella on a bright, sunny day, exactly as the president's car drove past. Theorists claimed he was signaling snipers, or perhaps firing a poisoned flechette dart from a modified canopy. His name was Louis Stephen Witt. In 1978, he testified under oath before the House Select Committee on Assassinations, and he brought that exact umbrella with him. Witt wasn't a spy. He was executing a highly obscure, petty political heckle. The black umbrella was a direct jab at JFK's father, Joseph Kennedy, who had famously supported British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, a man known for his trademark umbrella and his policy of appeasing Nazi Germany. What looked like a sophisticated black ops signal was actually just an obscure historical troll holding a visual pun caught in the worst possible place and time. The same breakdown happens when we examine the massive institutional cover-ups supposedly driving the plot, starting with the economic motive, Executive Order 11110. This is a 1935 silver certificate. A massive economic theory claims a cabal of bankers assassinated JFK because he signed Executive Order 1110 to strip the Federal Reserve of its power by returning the U.S. strictly to this silver-backed currency. The order did the exact opposite. Silver prices had climbed too high, so the order was a legal technicality allowing the Treasury to actually phase out silver certificates, clearing the runway for the Federal Reserve to issue its standard banknotes. Moving down the chain of command, we find nightclub owner Jack Ruby. Theories frame Ruby as a calculated mafia hitman, sent to execute Oswald before he could spill government secrets in court. Ruby was actually an impulsive, unhinged police groupie. Minutes before he walked down the ramp and shot Oswald, Ruby was standing in line at a local Western Union, sending a money order to one of his exotic dancers. This timeline charts the movements of both men. If the line at Western Union had taken even 2 minutes longer, or if Oswald's transfer hadn't been unexpectedly delayed by a random interrogation, Ruby would have walked into an empty basement. A premeditated syndicate hit does not rely on the queue time at a telegraph office. Even the medical evidence has been mythologized. For years, theorists pointed to JFK's missing brain as proof that conspirators stole physical evidence to hide gunshot wounds entering from the front. The confusion stems from the medical context of Dallas. The trauma doctors at Parkland Hospital were performing chaotic, desperate triage to keep a dying man alive. They were not conducting a pristine forensic autopsy. The later Bethesda autopsy confirmed the lethal shot entered from the rear. The brain went missing from the National Archives because the president's brother, Robert Kennedy, personally took control of the autopsy materials. He likely hid or destroyed the brain to prevent it from becoming a gruesome museum exhibit and to hide evidence of JFK's heavy reliance on Addison's disease medications. These cover-up mechanisms fail under any real scrutiny. Instead of a master plot, we find routine bureaucratic paperwork, incredibly lucky timing, and a grieving family desperately trying to protect its privacy. Now that the cinematic filter is removed, the evidence looks very different. The alleged physical proof has been replaced by a Diet Right can, 3 unhoused men, a political heckler, a delayed telegraph, and a protective brother. Every single viral piece of evidence crumbles the moment it is subjected to actual historical documentation. Which leaves us with the ultimate uncomfortable truth of the cleared record. Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Our refusal to accept that world-altering tragedies are usually born from chaotic, random, and banal moments is what drives us to construct these cinematic plots. A flawless shadow government hit is simply a narrative shield against the terrifying randomness of reality.